SpaceX and Elon Musk are names synonymous with doing things beyond people's expectations. Turning the impossible into possible is always the goal Musk aims for. Throughout its journey, SpaceX has continuously challenged seemingly impossible things and turned them into reality. And this time is no exception. Under Musk's leadership, SpaceX has once again performed a miracle with their workhorse rocket, especially the Falcon Heavy, leaving the world in awe. Let's find out on today's episode of Alpha Tech. Time flies. The first 6 months of 2024 are in the rearview mirror, and SpaceX seems to be having one of its best years yet, with a launch frequency of once every 2.7 days, a 29% increase compared to last year's 3.8 days. Last year, SpaceX did 96 Falcon launches, 98 including Starship. This achievement is a testament to SpaceX's technical prowess and operational efficiency, demonstrating their ability to execute rapid, successive launches. This development enhances the potential for more frequent and cost-effective space access. That's a crucial step towards making space travel more accessible and profitable for both commercial and scientific endeavors. However, that's not all. If SpaceX maintains that 2.7-day launch frequency, they'll complete at least 135 launches by the end of the year. SpaceX's goal has increased from the previous plan of 144 launches to a new plan of 148 launches for Falcon 9 and Heavy rockets, as shared by John Edwards, VP of Falcon Launch at SpaceX earlier this year. Because of this, SpaceX will need to push its rocket turnaround time to one launch every 2.5 days to achieve around 72 launches in the second half of 2024. This is truly remarkable, as Falcon launches are becoming increasingly familiar to all of us. SpaceX seems poised for a busy year ahead, along with the upcoming Starship flights. To date, SpaceX's Falcon 9 and Heavy rockets have launched 305 times. If SpaceX achieves its goal of 148 launches by the end of the year, this means 2024 will account for nearly 40% of the entire launch history of the Falcon family. Normal for the industry, SpaceX usually doesn't meet its goals stated by the end of the year. Most of this is due to issues outside its control, like weather or payload readiness. So saying SpaceX would meet or beat its 148 goal without including Starship's test flight would not be realistic. Schedules always slip in spaceflight, and that usually means to the right. However, the Falcon rocket is on its way to becoming the most frequently flown rocket in the world once again in 2024, a title previously reserved only for national rockets. The Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy are going to achieve this. SpaceX and Elon are maximizing the company's core approach to enhance their rockets, which is to reduce prices and cut costs. In the past, boosters were often lost or destroyed after completing their mission of launching satellites or spacecraft into orbit. Everyone has always understood how wasteful this is, and since the 60s, people have been trying to figure out how to reuse a rocket. Various test programs have been run, but they never had the power needed to do anything useful in space. Most of them never went above a few thousand feet. In 2015, Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin did this with a rocket that reached the edge of space, but still only took 10% of the energy needed to make orbit and do anything useful. The Space Shuttle was an ambitious attempt to solve this problem in a real-world system, and though they did manage to reuse most of their launcher, each shuttle required a slow and costly overhaul between flights, making each flight nearly as costly as an expendable rocket. So the situation in rocket manufacturing within the aerospace industry is extremely wasteful, with every serious attempt to address the issue proving unsuccessful. However, one private company has brought a ray of hope to the entire American industry. That company is SpaceX. The journey to achieving reusable boosters was fraught with challenges and initial failures. Early attempts at landing the boosters were met with crashes and explosions, and the task of landing a falling rocket booster back to Earth required unprecedented precision and control. However, the failure was a learning opportunity for SpaceX, pushing the team to refine their technology and improve their methods. SpaceX's persistence and dedication paid off December 21st, 2015. Instead of letting the first stage, the bottom part of the rocket with 9 of its 10 engines, fall in the ocean, they programmed it to fly back to Cape Canaveral, deploy little landing legs, and touch down, Buck Rogers style, on a concrete pad only a couple miles from the launch pad where the mission started. And this was no flight up to a couple thousand feet or even to the edge of space. This was a fully operational mission that also did real work for a paying customer. Afterwards, SpaceX achieved a significant milestone in 2017 when they began reusing the Falcon 9 boosters, marking the beginning of a new era in space travel. Since then, the first stage boosters of the Falcon 9 have landed and recovered 326 times out of 337 attempts. Not bad, including the simultaneous recovery of the side boosters on most Falcon Heavy flights. For the Falcon Heavy, the rocket not only lands the two side boosters after each flight, but can also land 3 cores. 2 of these land onshore in Florida near the launch site, while the central core lands on one of the company's drone ships in the Atlantic Ocean. 2019, SpaceX successfully landed the center core on a drone ship. In early 2018, SpaceX attempted to land all 3 boosters, but the center core damaged the drone ship due to insufficient fuel to relight the landing engines. Thus, the simultaneous landing of all 3 boosters has become one of the most iconic images of the launch, with many likening it to a ballet performance. This effort to enhance cost reduction and save money gives SpaceX a competitive advantage over its rival companies. However, SpaceX has different strategies for each Falcon Heavy launch, meaning not every mission involves landing all 3 boosters. Upcoming with an Astrobotic Griffin mission at the end of this year, SpaceX plans to recover all 3 boosters of Falcon Heavy. But even if Falcon Heavy doesn't always land all 3 boosters, the practice of landing and reusing rockets has already been revolutionizing the entire space travel industry. This kind of thing has only ever been done by the Space Shuttle, but instead of being the most expensive launcher, SpaceX is the cheapest. The pivotal first step in realizing all the ambitions of SpaceX is to drastically reduce the cost of launching objects into space, aiming for a mere 1/100th of the current expenses. Step 1 in that plan is to make the biggest, cheapest piece of a real working rocket reusable, but also achieve quick reuse. SpaceX has now completed the initial step in their world-changing plan. You might say they took one small step towards a giant leap for mankind. For years, they've mastered the art of landing the first stage of the Falcon rocket series. They've even demonstrated that recovered boosters can be safely reused for subsequent flights. To date, SpaceX has a total of 42 recovered boosters that have been refurbished and then flown at least a second time, with a record of 21 missions and landings performed by a single booster. Notably, the first stages of the Falcon 9 and the Block 5 version were initially certified for 10 flights. Since then, SpaceX has raised this standard multiple times, first to 15, then to 20 missions. Now the company aims to achieve a goal of 40 flights. This number is ambitious, but the technology SpaceX uses to land rockets is equally impressive, especially for Falcon Heavy. The technology I want to mention here is vertical dual landing. To date, vertical landing is one of the most difficult techniques in the aerospace industry. Many companies have tried to do this message, but they still can't succeed. Instead, they have to land in many other less risky ways, such as by parachute or dropping into the sea. And SpaceX has doubled the difficulty of that task. The scene of 2 side boosters landing vertically on the landing pad was truly impressive. Perhaps before witnessing that miracle, we would have thought that such scenes could only appear in sci-fi movies. But that is now reality. It's incredible that not only did he get the rocket up there, but he landed those 2 pieces right back on the ground upright, right there on the circle. How on earth do you do that? It was spectacular. This was the reaction of a man who directly watched the Falcon Heavy launch. That statement probably represents not only his feelings, but also those of everyone else who saw it happen. More surprisingly, SpaceX also wants to dual land 2 boosters on the drone ship. Although this has not been done with the Falcon 9, still landing the booster stably this way, this method may be applied to land Falcon Heavy's boosters soon. If SpaceX can do this, it'll help Falcon Heavy continue to increase its potential in the future. Falcon Heavy will not launch this year anymore. This is a harsh but unavoidable truth. Why is that? The year 2023 has been a fantastic year for the Falcon rocket family, not only for Falcon 9, but especially for Falcon Heavy, with a record number of launches in a year, totaling 5 impressive launches. These launches have demonstrated the rocket's reusability and capability of handling complex and diverse payloads, and this makes rocket enthusiasts like us look forward to a similar or even bigger breakthrough in 2024. However, reality can sometimes bring disappointment. Besides the most recent launch on June 26th, there's not going to be any more Falcon Heavy launches from now till the end of the year. This means Falcon Heavy has executed its first and only launch for 2024. This similar is kind of like SpaceX's Falcon Heavy launches in 2018 and 2022. So what happened with Falcon Heavy? First, we need to affirm that the recent failure of Falcon 9 is not the cause of delays or cancellations of future Falcon Heavy missions, but rather the issues are with the missions themselves. The highly anticipated mission, initially scheduled for October for Falcon Heavy, the Europa Clipper spacecraft, is in a precarious situation. The Europa Clipper mission has encountered critical delays due to problems with the spacecraft's transistors. These components were found to fail at lower radiation doses than anticipated, raising concerns given the intense magnetic fields around Jupiter, which are 20,000 times stronger than Earth's. This issue, detected late in the development process, poses a major risk to the spacecraft systems. NASA's initiated a preliminary analysis to resolve the problem by the end of the month, but the tight timeline makes it challenging to address the issue thoroughly. As a result, the launch may get postponed to next year or even 2026, potentially increasing costs and delaying the mission's scientific goals. With this outcome, Falcon Heavy has unfortunately missed its second mission. Next, another mission for Falcon Heavy at the end of the year is Griffin Mission 1 Viper, but its fate's even more catastrophic than the Europa Clipper mission. NASA recently canceled this mission due to escalating costs, which had surged to $450 million. This decision was influenced by delays in the development process and budget constraints. Originally set for last year, the mission had already been pushed back to 2024, further inflating costs by over 20% to the latest estimate of $609 million. NASA's teleconference on July 17th revealed the cancellation would save the agency $84 million. This figure could increase if the Viper launch continued to be delayed until November of next year. Most of the science that Viper would conduct will be carried out by other missions, like landers and orbiters. However, the mobility that Viper provides might not be available till NASA's Lunar Terrain Vehicle, a rover for crewed Artemis missions that can be remotely operated, is delivered later on this decade. In addition to its own developmental issues, Viper has also faced delays from Griffin, the lander built by Astrobotic. The company's under significant pressure following the failure of its Peregrine lunar lander, which was launched for the first time on a Vulcan rocket earlier this year. The company has extended the timeline for the mission launch until September of next year. With Viper canceled, NASA retains the mission order for Griffin. NASA believes Griffin will be able to land safely on the moon, with or without Viper on board. Instead, the mission will become a tech demonstration, carrying a mass simulator instead of the rover to test Griffin's capability to land large payloads. Despite the cancellation, Viper rover, fully assembled and undergoing environmental testing, faces an uncertain future. It may be repurposed for other missions or just scrapped altogether. At this point, we can see that Falcon Heavy has missed its final mission. It's a bit disappointing, yeah? I too feel a little bit down, and I'm pretty sure you do as well. However, let's stay optimistic, because if 2024 isn't Falcon Heavy's shining year, we can hope for 2025. According to the plan, SpaceX is going to have up to 5 missions, including 2 missions it missed this year for Falcon Heavy next year. On the other hand, Falcon Heavy will continue to hold significant importance in the foreseeable future, at least for the next couple years. Primarily, the relatively lower frequency of Falcon Heavy launches is not indicative of its diminishing relevance, but rather a reflection of its intended purpose. Falcon Heavy is designed for missions of greater complexity and payload requirements compared to Falcon 9. Previous missions, such as Psyche, Jupiter 3, Viasat 3, and those on the USSF, along with this year's GEO altitude missions, exemplify the rocket's capability to tackle challenging missions beyond low Earth orbit. This sets Falcon Heavy apart from Falcon 9, which primarily handles LEO missions, like Starlink deployments at 550 kilometers altitude. While Falcon 9 theoretically could execute these missions, Falcon Heavy's larger payload capacity and greater thrust make it the more suitable choice, ultimately enhancing mission efficiency. As SpaceX's next-generation vehicle Starship remains in the developmental stage, it's evident Falcon Heavy will continue to play a crucial role in the near future. While Starship is poised to eventually replace both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, this transition isn't happening overnight. Thus, important missions still heavily rely on Falcon Heavy for at least the next 3 to 4 years out. Feel free to share your thoughts on the number of years you think Falcon Heavy will remain influential in the comments down below for further discussion. Thanks. Getting back into it, regardless of its operational timeline, Falcon Heavy's significance is undeniable. If these missions proceed, they will play an incredibly important role in global space science as well for Falcon Heavy. Europa's Clipper mission holds immense importance as it'll transport NASA's spacecraft to Jupiter's moon Europa to conduct a pretty extensive survey. Equipped with sophisticated scientific instruments, the Europa Clipper aims to investigate the moon's composition, geological activity, icy shell thickness, subsurface lakes, and ocean's depth, along with the salinity. Without delving into extensive analysis, it's evident that this mission will profoundly impact humanity's future exploration endeavors. For NASA and Astrobotic's Viper lunar lander missions, it marks the next step in the U.S.'s journey back to the moon after 2 previous missions this year. This collaboration with Astrobotic will be SpaceX's first, adding to the mission's significance. The primary goal remains to explore the moon's south pole, specifically focusing on assessing the presence of subsurface ice, a crucial aspect for future Artemis missions. Moreover, in this mission, Falcon Heavy will also aim to achieve another milestone, successfully landing all 3 boosters. While SpaceX has demonstrated proficiency in landing 1 or 2 boosters in previous attempts, accomplishing a triple booster landing, possibly during the Griffin Viper mission, would mark an unprecedented achievement and elevate SpaceX's reuse strategy to new heights. Although these missions certainly won't be carried out this year, let's look more towards the future. Falcon Heavy will continue to play a major role in SpaceX's efforts to stay competitive in this increasingly crowded space launch market. Looking ahead, Falcon Heavy is ready to execute several upcoming missions to further cement their position in the market. SpaceX has secured contracts for numerous high-profile rocket launches, including missions in the National Security Space Launch (NSSL) program, with at least 30 missions planned for the next phase. Falcon Heavy, along with Falcon 9, are going to play a big role in fulfilling these commitments. With ULA's Vulcan Centaur making its successful debut and Blue Origin's New Glenn and Rocket Lab's Neutron reusable rocket poised to enter the scene in the coming years, Falcon Heavy will face heightened competition. However, its proven track record, versatility, and capacity for heavy payloads position it to continue serving as a formidable contender in the space launch industry. As a super heavy lift launch vehicle, Falcon Heavy, alongside Falcon 9, stands as SpaceX's trump card against the ambitions of other launch vehicles. While either one alone would suffice for SpaceX to outshine the competition, having both rockets with distinct characteristics provides a strategic advantage, enhancing SpaceX's overall capabilities. A promising future lies ahead for Falcon Heavy. With upcoming missions on the horizon, there's anticipation for a successful comeback after months of dormancy. This success will mark the beginning of new developmental stages for the rocket, further solidifying its position within SpaceX's arsenal. Together with Falcon 9 and Starship, Falcon Heavy will continue to bolster SpaceX's claim to the strongest orbital fleet in history. This comprehensive fleet not only showcases SpaceX's prowess in space exploration, but also reinforces its position as a leader in the aerospace industry. SpaceX has asserted its dominance in the space industry with its ability to rapidly and efficiently reuse rockets. Each time a Falcon rocket tears through the sky, a spectacular scene unfolds. Brilliant shooting stars swiftly returning to Earth, landing on solid ground or on a drone ship in the ocean. These are the booster stages of the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, coming back safely after completing their mission. This achievement stands like a shining beacon, overshadowing all the competition in the industry, even NASA, the renowned space agency of the U.S. Indeed, NASA can't achieve this. Their SLS rocket got embarrassed when compared to SpaceX's Falcon Heavy. NASA spends $2.6 billion annually to develop the SLS rocket and the ground launch system for the massive rocket at Kennedy Space Center. The SLS rocket was initially slated to launch in 2017, but its first flight was delayed until 2022. This is understandable. Most major aerospace rockets face delays. However, the cost of the 5-year delay amounts to $13 billion. To argue, let's compare the cost of this 5-year delay to the lift capacity that NASA could buy by purchasing Falcon Heavy rockets from SpaceX. That $13 billion equals 143 reusable Falcon Heavy launches or 85 expendable versions. This provides over 5,000 tons of lift capacity, equivalent to 13 international space stations or a lunar base. Clearly, NASA doesn't need that many launches, but they could buy several Falcon Heavy rockets each year and still have enough money to build meaningful payloads to launch on them. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, as this is great motivation to keep us going each day. Keep coming back. All right. Although partial reuse is an incredible technical advancement, SpaceX has not yet recovered the entire Falcon rocket. They've achieved a similar capability, much faster and cheaper than NASA's Space Shuttle, but it still contradicts the classic airplane comparison. If you had to replace a large part of an airplane every time it landed, commercial air travel would be completely unfeasible. Therefore, further development's inevitable. By 2017, SpaceX had initiated the strategy of testing the recovery and reuse of payload fairings for both Falcon Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets. It can be said that for many rocket companies, the fairing after launch is dead weight, so they don't waste time and money trying to recover it. However, SpaceX is different. In 2019, amid the fanfare of Falcon Heavy's second successful space journey, Elon announced that his company had, for the first time, managed to recover both halves of the super rocket's fairing. In his tweet, Musk confirmed that both fairing halves were retrieved from the Atlantic Ocean undamaged. So far, SpaceX has reflown fairing halves more than 300 times, bringing numerous advantages to SpaceX's launch objectives and demonstrating their efforts to surpass the seemingly impossible limits of space. Initially, fairing recovery posed significant technical hurdles. These large clamshell-like structures protect payloads during ascent through Earth's atmosphere, but once they fulfill their purposes, they become expendable debris, contributing to the high costs of space missions. SpaceX's early attempts at fairing recovery involved using ships equipped with large nets to catch the fairings as they descended under parachutes. However, the unpredictable nature of ocean landings and the difficulty of catching fairings midair led to mixed results. In response to these challenges, SpaceX pivoted its approach to fairing recovery, opting for a method that proved to be more reliable and cost-effective, allowing fairings to splash down in the ocean and then retrieving them. This approach, while seemingly less glamorous, offers greater predictability and reduces the risk of damage to sensitive equipment. Fairings are designed to be waterproof and undergo a thorough refurbishment process upon retrieval, including cleaning, inspection for damage, and component replacement as necessary. The cost-effectiveness and reliability of fairing recovery are central to SpaceX's mission of driving down the cost of space access. With fairing representing a significant portion of launch costs, each fairing can cost around $6 million. SpaceX can save millions of dollars each launch, and they've refurbished fairing halves nearly 400 times on Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, with some of them refurbed 11 times or more. Moreover, the reliability of fairing recovery contributes to mission success and customer confidence. When the company successfully recovers and refurbishes fairings, SpaceX demonstrates its ability to provide reliable and cost-effective launch services. This reliability is crucial for securing contracts from both government and commercial customers, solidifying SpaceX's position as a leader in the space launch market. However, that's just for the fairing. There's still part of the Falcon that hasn't been accounted for, and that's the second stage. Space enthusiasts might wonder why SpaceX hasn't attempted to recover the second stage of the rocket. Well, it's not hard to speculate that a company as curious and innovative as SpaceX has certainly thought about recovering the entire rocket, including the second stage. For many years, Elon's considered this idea, but it's never come to fruition. Unfortunately, as Musk confirmed in a tweet in 2018, the development of this new method was completely abandoned due to more urgent issues such as the development and testing of Starship. However, in reality, the technical challenges of bringing the second stage back to Earth intact are also one of the reasons. While the first stage is there to get the payload up, it could be said that the second stage is responsible for moving the payload sideways. The second stage is entirely focused on speed. For example, in a launch, it accelerated the payload from 8,019 kilometers an hour at a separation to the 26,960 kilometers an hour needed to maintain low Earth orbit in just a few minutes. Once the payload separates and continues on its mission, the second stage is its own spacecraft moving at orbital speed and altitude. Bringing it down to a gentle landing on Earth, therefore, has all the same challenges of landing any other spacecraft, except for the fact that the second stage has none of the hardware that would traditionally be necessary to pull off such a feat. It's a bit like trying to land an airplane without landing gear or wings. So why not add the necessary components to help it land, like parachutes or a heat shield, similar to how Dragon spacecraft comes back to Earth? We could equip it with a heat shield, but parachutes are a poor choice. They're heavy, they're imprecise, and impractical, as the second stage would get damaged when landing on solid ground. Parachutes could be used to land in the ocean, but seawater is very corrosive, so a water landing could also damage the stage. With parachutes ruled out, the only conceivable option is to perform a propulsive landing similar to how the first stage gets recovered. At first glance, this is exactly the technique that SpaceX has mastered with their boosters, so it should be a breeze, right? Not quite. In early concept videos from SpaceX, the second stage was shown outfitted with a heat shield, landing legs, and even a retractable engine nozzle. All these features would have worked together to make the stage capable of the same autonomous propulsive landings the first stage performs. But the problem with this super second stage is weight. Adding a recovery system would significantly increase the weight of the second stage, thereby reducing the rocket's payload capacity. Every kilogram of recovery gear added to the second stage is one less kilo of payload delivered to space, not to mention the additional fuel required for landing. For a commercial launch provider like SpaceX, that is a problem. Furthermore, not every mission has enough fuel left over to perform deorbit maneuvers necessary for recovery. Economically, the cost of developing the new technology with a performance loss might outweigh the benefits of reusing the second stage. Currently, Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy are still operating frequently, and the company always recovers the first stage in fairing for reuse. However, in the future, as Starship becomes increasingly robust, the Falcon rocket line will quickly become obsolete. At its core, Starship embodies SpaceX's vision of creating a fully reusable spacecraft capable of carrying out a diverse range of missions, from lunar and Mars exploration to interplanetary travel and satellite deployment. The centerpiece of Starship's revolutionary design is its full reusability, unlike the partial reusability of Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, and entirely opposite to traditional spacecraft models. A key component of Starship's reusability is its innovative propulsion system, powered by methane-based Raptor engines. Unlike traditional rocket engines, which typically use liquid oxygen and a hydrocarbon fuel like kerosene, Raptor engines utilize methane as fuel, and that offers several advantages. Methane's abundant and can potentially be synthesized from resources available on other celestial bodies, like Mars. Additionally, methane combustion produces fewer greenhouse gas emissions compared to traditional rocket fuels, making it more environmentally friendly for space travel. The Raptor engines also feature a revolutionary engine cycle known as full-float stage combustion, which maximizes efficiency and performance. In this complex process, both the fuel and the oxidizer are fully gasified before being combusted in the engine, allowing for greater thrust and propellant efficiency compared to traditional rocket engines. This innovative engine design represents a significant step forward in rocket propulsion technology and serves as a cornerstone of Starship's capabilities. Once Starship enters regular service, the future of space exploration has never looked more promising. However, regardless of the promising future, achieving this will require a considerable amount of time, so SpaceX needs to develop 2 rocket programs in parallel. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.